Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a crack at livestock, the animal agriculture side of things. I'm not quite sure how this video lecture is going to proceed. It's going to be a little bit different. I don't have as many notes. I might have to break it into two. I'm not sure. We'll just kind of play it by ear. This is a difficult topic. I think that the gap between what goes on farms and an understanding of that by people that live in urban and suburban areas is so great. I'm not sure it's spannable, if you will. But I'm going to take a crack at it. You probably have seen clips that highlight animal abuse, and of course the risk is maybe even sometimes the intent is to make you believe or lead you to believe that that's the norm, that that's what goes on all the time. And of course it's not. It's in farmers' best interests to see that their animals are healthy and as happy as they can be, because that's the kind of animal that's going to grow well, that's going to be healthier, and is going to do better for them. And so it is in the farmer's best interest to see to that animal's well-being. We also have to get to deal with the societal impacts of these various topics that we've been talking about. And so I thought I would start very differently from other video lectures with 4 video clips from anywhere around 30 seconds long, as the last one's 3 minutes. And they probe that question, what is a cowboy? Now, I've already mentioned that my wife is definitely a cowgirl. I've said before that when we got married on our wedding day, my father-in-law took me aside after the ceremony and said, "You know, you've married my best hand." And she has a brother. She is that good on horseback. Just being able to look at a cow and know what it's thinking and predict what it will do. It's amazing to me. But that word cowboy has many connotations in our society. And I thought I would probe just that question just a little bit. What is a cowboy? And so here's a few video clips that might help us understand that piece. The first one, I would be remiss if I didn't probe that question by considering John Wayne. Certainly the most iconic cowboy, arguably, in our society. So this is from the movie The Shootist, the last one that John Wayne did before he died of cancer. Interesting enough, he's also dying in this movie of cancer. Ron Howard is the boy here, who's now a very famous, very accomplished movie producer. But I'll just throw a little John Wayne here at you.
Mr. Brooks?
Yeah?
How'd you ever kill so many men?
I lived most of my life in the wild country, and you set a code of laws to live by.
What laws?
I won't be wronged, I won't be insulted, I won't be laid a hand on. I don't do these things to other people, and I require the same from them.
But how could you get into so many fights and then always come out on top? I nearly tied you shooting.
Friend, there's nobody up there shooting back at you. It isn't always being fast or even accurate that counts. It's being willing. I found out early that most men, regardless of cause or need, aren't willing. They blink an eye or draw a breath before they pull a trigger. I won't.
Bat Masterson.
Well, that's one person's take on what a cowboy is, John Wayne's code, if you will. Here's from the movie Armageddon. This will start a little loud, so here's another take on what a cowboy is.
Freedom! The Independence crew is on board and accounted for. We're even heavy one cosmonaut. They got 90% of their fuel.
Pretty intense, huh? That's why I told you, touch nothing but your bunch of cowboys.
I don't know about you folks, but I think that's meant to be a term of derision in that particular instance. Well, here's Robert Duvall and Kevin Costner, among others, in a third look at cowboy.
cowboy, Kenny.
Yeah. Broke the mold after him.
Well, there, cowboy goes from a noun to a verb. Well, that's interesting. Well, in this last one, this is from the book and movie Monty Walsh, which is a Louis L'Amour book. Louis L'Amour is an author, but he also was quite a student of the American West. And he used to, he's passed on now, but he used to say that there's no place mentioned in any of his many, many novels that doesn't actually exist. And so being a student of what a cowboy actually was, I think this clip from this movie probably comes as close to what a cowboy actually was as we can get from Hollywood. And I'm going to, it's a little bit choppy, so pardon me, I'm going to go through the first part, which you can't hear, and then we'll get to the clip.
I can see that they had provocation. I can even sympathize.
Okay, I have to pause here for a second before I continue with the movie. I need to set it up just a little bit. This gentleman here is the foreman for a crew of cowboys that a large Eastern concern has bought up a large ranch in Montana, I believe. And this gentleman here is one of the overseers for the company. This gentleman's crew of cowboys got into an altercation with a railroad crew and broke up their locomotive. The railroad company then is seeking damages from the company that now owns the ranch, and that's the controversy that we start in the middle of here.
Provocation. I can even sympathize with them, but the company would never approve payment. Those men are personally responsible. They're going to have to pay. The company will require them to pay.
The company doesn't know anything about horses. Doesn't know anything about men.
Are you saying the railroad shouldn't get paid?
No, sir, that's not what I'm saying. Our boys stomped on that railroad crew pretty good. Tore up their rig. Railroad's got it right.
Then?
Our boys make $25 a month. Buy their own gear. They are not going to pay.
I'm ordering you to make them pay. I can fire you, you know. You'd lose your job. For them.
I'd lose my life for them, and they would for me.
Who are you people? Maybe the company will pick up part of it. That's the best I can do.
See, these boys have no home, except for a horse and a cook shack. Got no property but a saddle and a gun. They don't earn any money. Got no wife, got no kids. Spend their entire life pushing cattle around to where them cattle don't want to go.
Sounds like a terrible job.
Yes, sir, it is a terrible job, but it's their job. All they got is freedom and pride, keeping their word and looking out for one another. All they got is their rules.
And where are these rules written down?
They're not written down, you damn fool. They're lived.
But they work for us.
They don't work for anybody. They work for the life.
How do you know all this? Because that's how you are. Which is why the company has to pay the railroad. And if we don't, you'll quit.
Every last one of us.
Well, Mr. Brennan, there aren't any other jobs.
And before I go, I will kick your ass.
Company will pay.
Well, yeah, there's some Hollywood takes. The last one probably comes closer to capturing the reality of what it was to be a cowboy, at least in the Old West. I have actually run into a couple of individuals that I would consider modern day cowboys, and it is a unique frame of thought. It's interesting because you'll never see them wearing short sleeve shirts, always a hat, always boots, probably a t-shirt and a long sleeve shirt even on the hottest day. And they definitely have a code that they live by. And it's kind of interesting, although a dying breed probably. They are unique. They are a piece of Americana. A very different perspective than suburban urban folks. And to make that point, I have some documents here. I'm going to go back and forth between videos and images and documents. Here's one from the news. This one is an Irvine woman. Let's see, I'm assuming Irvine, California. Yep, Orange County. Yeah. She wants a roadside memorial to honor fish killed in a truck crash. It seems a truck got in a three-way accident and had 1,600 pounds of saltwater bass that all had died in the crash. Interestingly enough, they were on their way to market. So I wonder how she would have felt if they would have made it to market. Here's another one. PETA. Oh yes, PETA. People for the Ethical Treatment of Andersons. Okay, that's not. People eating tasty animals. You've heard that one. No, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. That's what they are. They have a contest. The name of their contest is Why Should PETA Neuter You? And the winner of this contest gets a free vasectomy. I'm wondering what they'll do if it's a woman that wins it. Anyway, yeah. Here's some quotes from a number of people, and it really sets the stage for the clarifying this void that I've talked about between what goes on a farm and what people think. Let's see, who is this? This is Humane Society of the United States. Gentleman Michael Fox, not the actor, expressing opposition to the use of bug sprays. He says, only a few of the million you kill would have bitten you. Jeremy Rifkin, he was one of the people speaking in the Harvest of Fear video. He says, eating beef is an arcane, anachronistic tradition, a remnant of our past. I predict the beef culture will be over by the end of the 21st century. I'll take that bet. Another one, Tom Reagan, leader and philosophy professor, March on Washington leader, philosophy professor from North Carolina State University. It is not, he says, it is not larger, cleaner cages that justice demands, but empty cages. Not traditional animal agriculture, but the total eradication of these barbarous practices. Okay, well, that's one person's opinion of it. I guess he wants us to be vegetarian or vegan. We've already talked about animals. Plants also being sentient. We've talked about some people thinking they're not sentient enough to be considered an organism worthy of saving, but, you know, they're still sentient. Here's Vogue magazine. Even if animal research resulted in a cure for AIDS, we'd be against it. Okay. This is Washington magazine. Pet ownership is an absolutely abysmal situation brought about by human manipulation. Right? And here we have from the New York Times. This one I almost hesitate to read. It is so disgusting. It says, we feel that animals have the same rights as a retarded human child. I'll just let that one drop where it belongs. So here, to put a face on things, this is Ingrid Newkirk. And she is the head of PETA. I think she did this picture just to look nasty. I'm not sure. She's got gray hair now, but that doesn't matter. She is who she is. This is what Ingrid Newkirk says. Says animal liberationists do not separate out the human animal, so there is no rational basis for saying that a human being has special rights. A rat is a pig, is a dog, is a boy. They're all animals. That one really bothers me. It's this moral equivalency that bothers me so much. No, I disagree. A rat is not a pig, is not a dog, is not a boy. A boy is different from those. She also says, this one again is horrific, but she says 6 million Jews died in concentration camps, but 6 billion broiler chickens will die this year in slaughterhouses. Again, moral equivalency? Are you kidding me? She also says humans have grown like a cancer. We're the biggest blight on the face of the earth. And the last one, here you go. I am not a morose person, but I would rather not be here. I don't have any reverence for life, only for the ethics, the entities themselves. I would rather see a blank space where I am. This will sound like fruitcake stuff again, but at least I wouldn't be harming anything. Yes, you're right. That does sound like fruitcake stuff. Even here at Bethel, though, there's a lack of understanding. I think I've already mentioned this. If I didn't, I'll mention it again anyway. When I used to hatch out chicks from one class and do it in the main hallway display case, and we would listen to what people would say as the chicks would hatch and the little ones would run around, and everybody would love to look at them. And the three most standout comments, and I got a whole list here. Well, here from the list. It's a literal tweet. My cats would like those. I want one. Oh, look, he's stuck. That one's not very steady on his feet. And then the big three, though. Do you let them go in the wild when you're done with them? Well, that one I actually was asked of me, and it actually took my breath away. Yes, we're going to let them go in the wild with all their wild brethren and sister, and yeah, no. Do roosters lay eggs too? Oh, boy. And which one is the mommy and which one is the daddy? Another person asked. Wow. Yeah. So there's cartoons on Saturday morning. Back to the barnyard. Otis is the one of the main figures. He's a he, but he's got udders. I should bring up a picture of Otis here. See if I can find a picture of Otis. Back to the barnyard. And see if Otis comes. Yep, there's Otis right there. Okay, so if we go images, maybe you can see, yeah, check out this one. Otis is a guy, but dang, I think those are udders. Yeah, there's lots of mistaken information out there, and cartoons like this aren't really going to help the situation. If you look at some of the labeling that's out there, here's one from Golden Plump Chicken. They're really trying to create false narratives and prey on your lack of knowledge of the industry. For instance, here, this Golden Plump Chicken label, it says, no antibiotics ever. Evidently, even if the chicken is sick and would benefit from them, let it die. No added hormones. But there's two asterisks by that, or preservatives. So let's look, two asterisks, what it says here. Federal regulations prohibits the use of hormones in poultry. So they're bragging about what they can't legally do anyway. Yeah, so interesting, I think interesting issues that we've seen. So if we look at some of the main players, here's the Sierra Club. Why CAFOs are bad. Again, concentrated animal feeding operations or organizations. You can say it however you want. And they go through a list of why they're bad. Okay. Another Sierra Club one. Let's stop factory farms in Michigan. They don't like factory farms. Of course, that's most farms nowadays. Let's go to the Humane Society. Again, factory farming in America. Bad deal, according to the Humane Society. And here is why. We'll just take a little clip of this. Asthma, headaches, sore throats, diarrhea, burning eyes, or land, air, water polluted by manure, chemicals, and toxins. Workers put at risk, farmers forced into corporate contracts or out of business altogether. Animals languishing in filthy, cramped cages, crates, pens, and sheds. Okay, that would be bad if that were the case, but it really usually is not. Humane Society again. Here's pigs. Yeah, let's see. Yet on factory farms around the United States, pregnant pigs are confined to crates so small they can't even turn around. Soon after birth, the piglets are taken away from their mothers. The sows are impregnated again, and the cycle continues. Well, that's part of the story, but not all of the story. And they don't explain why some of those things happen for very good reasons. And on the video exercise number 5, the last one, there are two, the millennial farmers going to a pig facility and a hog facility and a turkey facility, and you're going to see more of the rest of the story, the reality of the story from those. Again, here's Humane Society. Turkeys forced into today's commercial breeds grow on a naturally rapid pace. Further growth compromises their health and welfare, causes them to suffer from skeletal, muscular, and other health problems. Again, how would farmers stay in business if they're raising unhealthy birds that are probably going to die before they can market them? Yeah, Not thinking that's going to be the case. There are a couple of video clips now. I'm going to just pause here, and I'm going to expect you to go view these two clips. They will be links on Moodle, and these are they're both involving Mike Rowe. And to my mind, this is one of the most powerful sets of video clips that I can offer you that makes the point I'm trying to make. The first one, his dirtiest job crew, this will be what it will look like. It's 1 minute and 50 seconds, going to Craig, Colorado, and they're going to work sheep. They're going to castrate males, cut off tails, dock tails, and ear clips. They talk a little bit about why they do those things. Okay, and you will be shocked. I'm not going to say any more. Then you'll go to this TED Talk involving Mike Rowe and his reaction to it afterwards. And I think there are, great, not a great place to stop.
Blown away at how completely wrong.
There I'm going to have you watch about the first 5.5 minutes of this, and he responds to that. And really, folks, you got to stop this video right now, this lecture, and look at those talks, and just let them sink in about what he did and saw, and then his sort of education about what was going on and why it was going on. Again, a very powerful set of videos that I want you to watch. So I'll just pause here and let you take those in. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful in understanding maybe what you don't know and don't understand about animal husbandry, raising of livestock on farms. And maybe it will at least inspire you to ask some more questions and understand why farmers and ranchers do what they do. Again, it's in their best interest to have healthy, happy animals. And it doesn't always happen, I'll grant you that. But more often than not, most of the time, they're really working towards that goal. There's a term here that I need to insert, and that is anthropomorphism. Because that's really one of the main issues here. Anthropomorphism is the attributing of human characteristics to the non-human. Again, attributing human characteristics to the non-human. It's basically what Walt Disney does. I love a good Pixar Walt Disney cartoon as much as the next person does. I own Bambi, the original book from when I was a wee tot. But boy, what they did for suburban urban folks' understanding of what goes on a farm is not great. At any rate, this is a concentrated animal feeding operation right here. I've shown it to you before. And the question is, you look at these cows. I think I asked this question before. This cow laying here and this one here. Is this cow suffering? You could look at that and you could see that position the cow is taking and say, that cow is suffering. It can't even stand up. It's probably sick from crowding and malnourishment and whatever. You could spin whatever story you wanted around that. Or could you say this cow is just laying down in the sun with a full belly, all the water it can drink. They get all they can eat over here. They always have water available to them in places like you see right here, and is just basking in the sun, just loving life because it's completely oblivious to its fate. Once it reaches about 1,100 pounds at about a year and a half of age, it's going to go on a one-way trip to the slaughterhouse and become a ribeye steak or whatever it is you like. So we're going to just finish up this lecture, which will get just a little long, but with a brief consideration of some of the economics of cattle raising. If you wanted to be a cowboy or a cowgirl yourself, what costs, what expenses would you incur? And so these are the livestock notes. Okay. So I label it as a benefit cost analysis, and thinking of the expenses, normally I would stop the class at this point and ask you, from your perspective, what are some costs that you might incur if you wanted to begin raising cattle for a living? And again, I have had students in this class take up that occupation after this class, and they were a completely different major, but it just became apparent to them that is where God was calling them. That is the life they wanted, and they went after it, and they did it. So yeah, so what would it take? So if you look at the notes, there's wide variability in prices and costs on here, and I'll make that case towards the bottom. But generally speaking, if you look at a cow, like, well, not like these here, but if we go to the picture of the bull, I think I had a bull here, did I? Yeah, that bull, that's a bull. Let's go with the cow-calf pair, which is how they're represented and how they might be sold to a person that wants to begin raising cattle for themselves. So here are a bunch of cow-calf pairs. We'll pick on this one right here. It's a good looking cow. It's very interesting. I've sat in many cattle auctions with my father-in-law, and he'll watch hundreds of cattle come through the sale ring, and people will bid on them and buy them. And I've asked him, what do you look at in a cow to know that it's a good one? They call that confirmation. What is the characteristics you see? And my father-in-law is really a genius when it comes to farming. Never did well in school, did very well with farming and ranching. And he isn't real good at expressing himself, but he grew up in this industry. He knows what a good cow looks like because he's watched them go through their lives and either succeed or fail at producing calves. And so when I asked him that question, he looked at a cow down in the ring and he started to say this and he started to say that, and he says, well, finally, just kind of in a frustrated voice, well, she just looks good. And it was kind of fun, but I didn't get much of an education. But one of the things, they're going to look for this straight back here. They'll look for the conformation of the pelvis here, make sure the birth canal is good. If you ever go to the state fair and you wander down to the cow barn, sometimes there are judges there. You should ask a judge sometime. I dare you to ask a judge what characteristics they're looking for, and you will be shocked at the amount of detail and the terminology that you might be confronted with and expected to digest. At any rate, in our operation, this cow-calf pair you might be able to buy for $1,500. Right now, you might be able to get it for a good deal cheaper than that. Not too long ago, you would have had to pay a good deal more than that. So you're going to need, if we're west of here, if we're going to go out to South Dakota, for instance, you will probably need about 20 acres of grass to support that animal through the year. No, according to PETA and Humane Society and lots of others, these calves aren't raised in crates their whole lives. They spend about 10 months out on pasture with their moms doing this nursing until they're weaned. They'll be weaned onto grass and feed. And only after roughly around 10 months on average will they go to a feedlot, get fattened from about 700 pounds to 1,100 pounds, gaining hopefully about 3 pounds a day, if you can imagine. That feels like what I'm doing right now while we're on this isolation thing. But gaining about 3 pounds a day until they're fattened and will go to the slaughterhouse. So if you look at your notes then, let's just say you wanted to buy 150 cow-calf pairs and 4 bulls for about $250,000. Just by the way, if you will, if you're interested in another vlog, there's one called My Wyoming Life. And it's a gentleman that was a radio DJ, married a young lady that was working in the business. They ended up, and I'll let them tell their own story if you want to look at it, with a Wyoming ranch and about 150 cow operation. And yeah, you can just take a look at that vlog, if as many of them as you want. But that's a very realistic scenario I've set up here. About four bulls, and you could get all that for $250,000. So if you got venture capital laying around, there you go. We're going to consider some variable costs and some fixed costs. Now, those of you that are business majors, I know there are fixed variable costs and variable fixed costs. We're not going to go that deep into the weeds. But generally speaking, variable costs vary with the number of animals. So the more animals you have, the more of these costs you will incur. And pasture and feed is the first one that's listed here. And that is on average about just shy of $300 per cow per year. That would be rent on land, pasture land. Interestingly enough, where my wife's from in western Kansas, you would have to pay about $15 an acre to rent pasture for a year. cropland, if you're going to grow corn, you would pay about $50 an acre to rent that, just so you know what those costs look like in at least one state. Dietary supplements, about $32 per cow per year. Those are going to be include mineral, salt and mineral that the cow needs to have a good diet. That's very important, and it's a very definite expense that farmers, ranchers have to incur. Just by the way, I'm using those two terms together. Farmer grows crops, a rancher raises animals, but I'm not going to separate them distinctly. Protein, mineral, salt, I guess I lump those in with dietary supplements. There's some difference there, but generally speaking, kind of lumping them together into $32 per year. Okay, veterinary, $15 per cow per year. Interesting enough, you notice I mentioned about 150 cows and 4 bulls. Yes, cattle are promiscuous. You don't have one bull mating with one cow for life, forever and ever. So interestingly enough, one of the significant issues that you have to worry about, because bulls are promiscuous and cows are promiscuous as well, which kind of one follows the other, is venereal disease. Cattle can have that because bulls are promiscuous, and so there's lots of things though. They can have mineral deficiencies. They can catch a bug. They can, need an antibiotic. They can need an immune system supplement. There's lots of veterinary costs. Of course, you need buildings and fence repairs. So you got to have. It's nice to have a place to calve a cow, to have her calf. You don't always have that, but fencing that is an unending battle. Is fence repair. And then there's the ever-present miscellaneous, utilities, fuel, insurance, all that sort of stuff. No, insurance is down below. Sorry. Fuel, electricity is what I meant. Okay, so you notice that farmers will do some of these, and that's the asterisk thing. It's interesting. Veterinary expenses. If you're a farmer, you can go to the vet's office and buy all these medications, and the vet will tell you how to use them. And it's very, if you go to a city vet, oh no, they've got to do everything because you're incompetent and you don't know the difference between giving a shot, IM and IV. IV is intravenous. IM is intramuscular. They wouldn't do that, but on the farm they will. Interesting enough also is that veterinary supplies are often significantly less expensive than our human medicines, and amoxicillin is one of those antibiotics that is used both in animal husbandry and with humans. And I know more than one farmer that buys amoxicillin for his herd and gives it to himself and his family. It's not a good idea because it's not produced under the same guidelines and the same strict regulations, but they've gotten away with it so far. So fixed costs. You got to have these no matter how many animals you have. Like buildings, you're going to have buildings of some sort. You got to have a bull. Payment on debt for cows, because you probably don't have $250,000 laying around. You're probably going to have to borrow the money, and so on and so forth. Taxes and insurance. Total cost, you add all that up, you have $590 per cow per year, that's significant. Okay, so then if you look at, if we back up here, we're to have the bull here. There's Bel Air. So this is there's Bel Air. So this is a Hereford, okay, and what we have here is a Hereford Angus mix. This is called a black white face. And that's what you get. A Hereford and a black Angus mixed together gives you black white face. And that hybrid, just like with plants, turns out it's a better cow. Now, Hereford and Angus are both types of cattle that will put on taste fat. That fat in the meat that makes the meat, just melt in your mouth. Not every cow will do that, like these Scottish Highlander cattle. I'm told they taste more like venison. So, yeah. Anyway, if you look then at the last line in the notes, you take this calf here and you raise it to about 10 months. It could be a little more, a little less. It depends on where you're at and how fast they gain. Let's say you sell that calf at 10 months it weighs 730 pounds. You say, well, this calf doesn't. No, you're right. This calf is probably 350 pounds? I don't know, guessing. So it's going to be at least double that. And then you sell it. And last year, I took some data from July of last year, and that calf would get you about $1.90 a pound, averaging steers and heifers. Heifers are a little bit smaller, steers a little bit bigger, but at any rate, I'm averaging it, and that'll net you about gross you about $1,387 per calf. You take away the $590 in expenses, you got almost $800 per animal times 150, which is the number of calves hopefully you raised, and you have made just about $120,000. That's half your farm debt. Dang, I'm going to go in the business. Of course, not all calves are going to survive. So you'll have some loss, but still, that's some pretty good numbers. Well, let's jump ahead to now. April of 2020, this last month. Yeah, look at that. Take $1 away from that average price. It's down to 90 cents per pound. So yeah, don't sell your cows. If you got them at 730 pounds, that's going to give you $657 rather than $1,387. Take away your $590 in expenses, leaves you $67 per calf. At 150 head, that gives you just over $10,000 for net income. You're probably going out of business. Oh, wow. Yeah, so that's what's going on. You say, well, just hang on to the calf. Well, you can't hang on to a calf forever. There's a window of opportunity when they're growing that they will gain fast and put on a lot of fat and be good for market. After that, the meat won't grade as high. You won't get the really prime and select cuts out of that carcass as you will earlier. That's why bulls are castrated or as a calf because because of behavioral issues. If they are left intact, they'll be fighting with each other in a pasture. But also a bull won't give you high grade meat. It's what processors call dark cutters. It's a dark meat. Mostly they're good for hamburger, and that's about it. You don't get really high quality steaks out of a big bull like old Bel Air here. Interestingly enough, there's catalogs out there where if you want to artificially inseminate the cows, which is commonly done, you can buy old Bel Air semen here, and they'll come to you in frozen sleeves that you have to put in the cow. You have to inject the cow with hormones to prepare it for ovulation, and be able to take that semen. And yeah, you could do that too. So yeah, you can see some of the ups and downs of the markets here that we're currently experiencing. I wanted to get you a picture of the piles of dead carcasses outside of hog processing facilities in southern Minnesota. I've seen them, but I couldn't find any today. I want to just go down and say, give me one. Of course they wouldn't do that. But yeah, this is a traumatic time for livestock. And I hope that the president's initiative to get these processing facilities open works, and so we can get some stability back in the market, and these farmers don't just lose their shirts in this difficult time. That is just a thumbnail sketch of livestock issues, and I know I went long, so you can break this up into two if you want. And I'll be looking for your comments on video exercise number 5. I will look for the links from Dirtiest Jobs and the TED Talk, and I'll look for your comments on forum as well. All right, thank you. Have a good day.